Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to the next part of my Final Fantasy XIV Let's Play series with beginner tips and tricks. We did heal in your first dungeon, we did tank in your first dungeon, let's do DPSing your first dungeon. Now, I'm not going to DPS on every single different class, and the experience varies from class to class. I specifically am going to be playing the Thaumaturge. It's the Black Mage's base class that you're going to unlock. I need it for Swiftcast anyway, which is a cross-class ability that I'm going to want when I go back to playing my healer. And on top of that, it's just a class that I see a lot of players struggling with in the mid-30s to 40s. I want to get started with it early on, and then eventually move it into those higher-level dungeons for explanations. Just as more, that's going to be more of a Black Mage-specific thing I'll cover eventually. And in this video, I will be giving a lot of early-level to mid-level Thaumaturge and Black Mage tips as a whole. So, as a Black Mage, there's not nearly as much prep that goes into, before you go into a dungeon like there was with the tank and the healer. I do recommend that, again, you read all of your abilities, you understand how they work. One of the big things with Thaumaturge specifically is understanding Astral Fire and Umbral Ice. Now, the class plays completely differently at low level, so I'm not going to get too deep into that. It's not as important in the low levels as it is when you start having the quicker access to your abilities at the higher level. But some basic things are knowing that when you want to deal a lot of damage, you want to be in Astral Fire mode. When you're trying to get your MP back, you want to be in Umbral Ice mode, which is through ice spells. You want to, if you can, sleep enemies, CC them so that they do less damage to the tank. Thunder, dotting at low levels is a very controversial thing. A lot of the times, enemies die too quickly to make use of it. In dungeons, Thunder will most likely be one of the spells that you use very often, just because it does enough damage on bosses to warrant using, is really the only thing. And it just barely does enough damage. With Astral Fire on, I don't even think it even counts. But try and apply it. You're going to want to get used to it for the later levels anyway. And then you have your AoEs, Blizzard 2 and Fire 2. Again, Fire 2 does more AoE damage than Blizzard 2, but if you're next to a lot of enemies and you're out of MP and you're in Ice mode anyway, Blizzard 2 is good to use anyway. Cross-class skills, I'm using Raging Strikes, Cure, and Protect. Raging Strikes is really the only important one. Cure and Protect are more for solo play. And other than that, just make sure you have up-to-date gear. It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. It's not as important as when you're a tank or a healer, so don't worry about that too much. So, with all that out of the way, we are going to go into the Duty Finder. We are going to queue up for Copperbell Mines in this video. It's the first of the 3 dungeons in the game. If you're playing the Trial, it will be the final dungeon that you do, with the next fight being a fight against Ifrit, which is something that we'll be showing as well, getting started with all the primals and all that stuff. So, with that out of the way, so one thing you do have to do as a DPS, your queues are usually going to be a little bit longer. So, I recommend clicking Join Party in Progress in the impossible odds that there's actually a DPS that you end up being able to replace in somebody's dungeon. This will at least jump you into the middle of the dungeon if you just want to get it done. It's not as much experience points, but you know what? Gets the dungeon done, like I said. Also, you're going to want to enable all these languages, Japanese, English. I believe this is German and French. This just makes your Duty Finder able to pick from a wider variety of players. So with both of those things out of the way, we select Copperbell Mines, and we're going to click Join, and it's probably not going to look so great. If we go to the Duty Finder, 24 minutes is our average wait time. And you know what? That's pretty good. A while ago when Ninja first came out, when Rogue and Ninja first came out, that queue would have been easily over 30 minutes, and it would have come close to 2-3 hours. On some data centers, the queues are probably going to be longer than this, depending on how active it is. If it's too active, if it's not active enough, it changes a lot. So I am not going to show you guys what I would do normally with an average wait time of 24 minutes, but if you do have a wait time like that, it's not a bad idea to go around, find an area where you can do some fates, do some leave quests, although as you start getting closer to the average wait time being completed or being reached, you may want to stop doing them, because if you get a dungeon queue, you're going to end up having to abandon that leave quest and basically waste one of your allowances. And at this point, you probably haven't been playing the game that long, so you don't have many allowances to abandon in the first place. So go around, do any hunting logs you still need to finish, do any fates that you can do in the area, and just kind of wait it out for your average wait time. It's going to suck. I promise you it will suck at some times, but it's what you got to do as a DPS. So I'm going to cut away for now. At this point, if you're waiting for a queue, I highly recommend you go around and do those fates. I'll see you guys when the dungeon itself actually pops. Hey guys, so I'm back, and I had waited about 15 minutes into the queue, and then a random healer walking by just said he liked helping new people, and he asked me if I wanted to do a quick queue. So even though I waited 15 minutes, I probably had maybe another 10 to wait. He just invited me to a party, switched to his, I think he was on his Scholar, so I didn't really see. And yeah, that's well, that's the end of it. So this is another I guess this is another point in teaching a DPS about doing dungeons in your first time. Make friends that are healers or tanks. Make good friends that are healers and tanks. Ones that also want to level or like helping new people. Whatever the reason is, having a tank friend or a healer friend can make a world of difference when it comes to doing dungeons. We also seem to have a high level warrior. I'm assuming he's gonna spam overpower. So some things I'm gonna be doing here are not gonna be particularly necessary. In fact, there are some things that even I'm still curious about. If he's gonna AoE, I'm just gonna fire too. Let's find out. Let's find out if he's AoEing. Before I start teaching the proper lessons, you know, he's not marking. So I'm led to believe that perhaps I don't need to do single target rotations. It's going to be a kind of weird dungeon for me overall, because this is probably the first dungeon where it hasn't been mostly brand new people to the game. Having a scholar is a big thing because he could just DPS the whole time. His pet will take care of all the healing, and that's kind of why I wanted to do later healing videos on scholar, and then also going back and showing you what it's like doing the low levels on scholar. So, yeah, I'm gonna have to give this guy a shout out because the guy literally just says he likes helping new people. That's the only reason why he invited me. And his name is Javon Perry. I want to give him a shout out because that's a very noble thing to do. Literally be running around his zone, see somebody with a new player symbol and be like, hey, he's a DPS. He's probably waiting a long time for a queue. Let me see if they need some help. I just want to commend him because it's a really nice thing to do to treat new players that way. So I feel like he deserves that sort of, you know, attention. Weird thing about Copperbell Mines, you could just run past that group of enemies right there and they will eventually just leave you alone. The same thing happens in that group of enemies too. See, they just leave. They just give up. It happens in hard mode too. Enemies in that area eventually just give up. I don't know why that happens, why that's a thing. It just is. I can't explain it, man. I can't explain it at all. Alright, well, I'm just going to stick to AoE rotation then, which is just basically going to be made up of... oh, that was... Still getting used to the button. Oh, yeah, definitely going to be AoEing here. He's got a lot... He picked up a lot of enemies, so... I am... definitely going to be AoEing. Now, like I said earlier, don't really pay too much attention to what I'm doing as a thaumaturge here because I'm kind of just winging the lower levels because they're more awkward than the higher levels are, really. Mostly just because you don't have all the tools you would normally have for AoEing, like Flare and Fire 3 and Blizzard 3, and you basically just be using Transpose a lot. And it's kind of lame, but it's whatever. I think I can just single target down all these at this point. Just one spell each. Oh, whoops. Except that I'm playing like an idiot right now. Trying to talk and play Thaumaturge was a little weird for some reason. It's one of those classes I have a hard time talking and playing as, even though it's so simple. Fire, 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 switch, switch, switch. Probably just because it's the low level one, and I know how to play the level 50 version. So, he had to go be right back real quick. So I'll take this time to talk a little bit about DPSing in a dungeon. Now, you'll notice that unlike in my tanking video, the tank isn't marking everything. You know, I said that as a low-level tank, that's a good habit to be in, to mark targets and hope that your party at least adheres to them a little bit. And it is still a good thing, but that's not always going to be a thing. Some groups are going to want to just tank everything. They're going to constantly AoE, and they'll just expect you to kill the things in whatever order really matters. They don't trust you enough. They don't trust the duty finder, I should say, enough to rely on those like marking of targets and things like that. So in that case, I'm going to do an AoE rotation. Now, I think Thaumaturge might be the only class at this level that really has a rotation in terms of AoEing. You know, like, we saw the Archer was using Quick Knock, an AoE, in the last video. He was just using it occasionally, but that's not a rotation. He just spams the same ability. Here, it's all about bouncing back and forth between the fire and ice modes, and that's really a big thing when it comes to doing your AoE rotation. Your big damage will come from fire, and your MP regeneration will come from ice, like I said before. So I'm going to have to separate this somehow between doing my AoE rotation, between doing my single target rotation. It's honestly, it's a lot different than I was expecting it to be. If your tank marks the targets and you should then adhere to them. You know, that means that your tank wants to play a certain way, and that you should adapt to that way. And that you shouldn't just take it upon yourself to play however the hell you want, because it may or may not just slow down the dungeon. It may, you know, mess people up a little bit more than they're used to playing. You want to keep everybody in their comfort zone. You really have to be adaptable in the Duty Finder to the way that your party plays and the experience and skill levels of those individual party members. So on these big AoE pulls, you're just going to see me AoE. And when we talk to the single targets, I'm going to talk a little bit more about DPSing. The big thing about DPSing is why'd he take his shirt off? You really want to make use of all the tools that you have. Similar to how I showed you with the tank, you really want to make use of all the tools that you have. For example, I have Raging Strikes on my bar, but I didn't use it in that last pull. I was too kind of just caught off by how much that tank pulled. Like, I'm not used to seeing tanks do those super big pulls in the low-level dungeons. It's just not something I'm used to, you know? So he's probably going to do that again. He might just pull 3, and in that case, I have a feeling he's going to pull more than that. Yep, we're doing even more big pulls. Now, if you are super geared and experienced and you trust everyone in your party, this is totally doable. You know, I don't think this tank isn't doing anything wrong. He just trusts us this much. And I'm glad to see that he trusts us this much. And you know what? It makes sense. He sees 3 people are on jobs, so he's assuming that they've at least played to a certain level. And he's also got a Thaumaturge, which is usually like a dead giveaway sign that, hey, maybe I should just pull a bunch of stuff and we'll AoE. So I don't blame him that much. I wish I had Fire 3 and Blizzard 3 right now on this so bad. Yeah, getting used to these binds has also been kind of weird for me. But it's okay. So just big AoE pulls. I kind of almost wish I was a healer in this dungeon, because there's not much to say. I'm just hitting everything. I guess really that is DPSing as in dungeon. You just kill everything. That is your goal. Survive and kill everything. You have no other purpose. That is what a DPS does. Why do I keep using Blizzard for some reason? That is what a DPS does. You stay alive and you do a lot of damage. When we get to a boss, I'll talk a little bit more specifically about what you're actually supposed to be doing in terms of avoiding stuff and maybe some Thaumaturge specific tips. Right now, it's just I kill all the things. I'm having fun though. I haven't done a low-level dungeon like this in a long time. It's just been a really long time since I've just had somebody do these kind of pulls in an AoE dungeon. Now you're probably wondering, when is enough enemies to AoE? And that's actually a very good question. 3 enemies is usually enough to signal that you can AoE, but some people, and this is honestly, I prefer doing this, when you only have 3 targets exactly, you kind of just want to kill them one by one, because it just relieves the tank and the healer of work, really. In higher level dungeons, though, that will, as a Thaumaturge especially, that'll pretty much never be the case. You'll be AoEing whenever there's 3 targets, or 3 or more targets. But when there's 4, when he does big pulls like 4, 5, 6, AoEing is almost always a better use of your TP. Or at least, it's more effective per point of TP or MP than it is if you were to single target. The thing is, though, what can happen is you'll run out of MP or you run out of TP, you'll have nothing, and then the AoE damage will stop and you didn't kill anything, and then you end up having to go back to doing single target because you don't have the resources to do anything else. That is very common. Unfortunately, this is also not a great boss for me to show you what it's like, because this is a boss where it's literally just a bunch of enemies. As a Thaumaturge, you can pretty much just stand in the middle and AoE everything down at a certain point, but I'm just gonna single target down a few of them, and yeah, I could even just Scathe. I don't even need to be casting Fire 1, because everything just dies. See, as you can see, everything just dies so quick in this fight. Like, unless I literally get like the first hit, I literally am just one spell. I'm one and done, you know. It's really nice if everybody just stacks, and then you could just do this. This works way better than it should. See, watch this, watch. You just stand here and just Blizzard 2. I don't recommend doing this in real AoE situations. It just happens to be really effective on this fight in particular, solely because of how little HP these things have, and just the fact that because you're an Umbral Ice, you'll never run out of MP. It just ends up working out in this fight. At the enemy at the end, I'll show you more along the lines. What the usual deal is with DPS at lower levels is you'll apply your dot, which in this case I have 1 or 2 dots. You know, like I have 1 dot at this level. I have Thunder 1, And Black Mage as a whole is only going to have 1 dot forever. So that's not really ever going to change that much. But you'll apply your 1 or 2 dots. You'll apply after you apply any buffs that you have. So like as an archer, you'll want a straight shot before you use Venomous Bite. And you'll generally just want to put your dot up and then just spam whatever your highest damaging combo or ability is. I mean, that changes a lot from class to class, which is, like I said, this is really more of a mechanical thing of what DPS do, which is really, at this point, I'm just playing the dungeon. Like, that is what DPS do. So, normally, as a Thaumaturge, you're not going to apply Thunder while you're in Fire mode. I'm going to do it right here just because, you know, whatever. Look how quick this thing is going to die. This thing is going to die really, really fast. So, it's not even going to matter. Also, it seems like I'm lagging a little bit because I don't know if you guys just saw that. It looked like it took, like, 20 seconds for my transpose to go off, and at this point I don't even have to transpose back. That's how little health this thing has. Not a great fight. I guess maybe it would have been good to do this one as a tank, because this is not going as well as I hoped it would. I'm gonna agree on that in case I ever end up playing a DPS or something, you know, whatever. So back to normal pulls, I'm thinking, so I can talk a little bit more about mechanics and dodging and DPSing. That's a big thing. Some people will just DPS regardless of dodging. Okay, it looks like he's actually stopping to kill these things. So one thing about DPSing in dungeons, in these super low level dungeons, is the usefulness of your dots. Dots take a while before they're useful on the enemy, and at these low levels they basically have to last their entire duration before they're considered MP or TP efficient. So on these weaker pulls, you may opt to dot less. I don't recommend not dotting at all, though, unless the enemy literally dies in the first 5 seconds. Like, as an archer, Venomous Bite literally lasts, I think it lasts 9 seconds at this level. It may last 18. I don't think you have the passive at this point that makes it last 18. But Venomous Biting is, you know, just dotting in general is just, I have no idea what I'm even saying anymore. All right, let's reset. Let's take a deep breath and reset. Okay? Alright, so the main lessons I want to teach in this video. Dotting after you buff, and then just spam your highest damaging ability. I said it before. We're going to say it now, a little bit more calmly. I had a few too many cups of coffee, so I may be talking a little bit more than usual, which is strange for me, because I talk a lot as it is. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. At that point, it comes about just knowing how to squeeze the most damage out of your class or job at the level that it's required of you. And hopefully, even though I'm playing Thaumaturge, you're picking up a little bit of the way I'm playing and a little bit of the words that I'm saying and applying it to your own class. Sometimes, as a DPS, there are some things you have to take upon yourself, and this is going to be one of those situations. I know that the blasting cap will explode and kill itself, or it'll explode and kill one of my party members because they, you know, didn't move out of it in time. So I make it my goal to kill enemies that I feel like are a threat to my party first. They're the biggest threat to my party, I should say, first. Which is why, even though he didn't mark it, I didn't even know if he was attacking it. I think I chose to single target that one down specifically. It was the biggest threat. That was the most important. Of course, if your tank is ignoring an enemy and you just beat on it and eventually it comes and tries to kill you, like what I'm doing right now because he's not marking, that can be an issue because then it'll come and it'll probably kill you. So, these low-level dungeons, for lack of a better term, are mostly YOLO as a DPS. I'm starting to think maybe doing the DPSing your first dungeon idea, maybe that wasn't the best of ideas just because of how little impact you really have as a low-level DPS. It's not that you don't do anything. It's just that you don't do anything special. At this point, it just becomes about knowing your abilities in your class and how to do damage. It's not a matter of like, oh, you got to make sure that, you know, if you're a healer, you can try and DPS in between casts, make use of your heals and try not to overheal too much. And as a tank, guys, like, make sure your gear is up to date, that you're making sure you do enough AoE enmity and you do so your flash and your overpowers. Make sure you're using your defensive cooldowns, you know, spacing them out a little bit. There's none of that as a low level DPS. There is simply none of that. You have longer queues and less responsibilities. That's pretty much how it's going to be for the most part. Especially on the second boss, which I just realized is also a terrible example of what to do as a DPS. Because this is a fight where I literally have to do nothing except kill one enemy twice during the fight. It's just... I have nothing to teach you here. You just kill stuff, alright? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the responsibility of hitting the improved blasting device for this fight. Because that's going to spawn an enemy. And in Copperbell Mines, important, don't kill this enemy if you're a DPS. Just let the tank pick it up, bring it over, and just don't touch it. That's all you got to do. Because this boss has so much HP that the only way to kill it is to cause it to get hit by the explosion of this bomb, which the tank, thankfully, needs to avoid, and did so in this case. And then it splits in half, and you have to grab aggro on both of them. And then you have to do that 3 times, and you can AoE down all the enemies that spawn. Having a thaumaturge in this dungeon is awesome. It is awesome by a lot. And also, as you can see, this blasting device takes forever to respawn. So, that's the second bomb. We need one more after that. But this time, an enemy's going to spawn that's going to try to kill the blasting cap. So, as a DPS, I need to be aware of... I don't even think I got to do damage to that thing. That's how quickly it died. That's how... It's okay. I think you get the point. As a DPS, you need to know what you have to kill and what you don't have to kill. And in this situation, I don't want to kill the blasting cap, but I do want to kill the thing that spawns over here. Knowing where to focus your DPS is a pretty big point. If you just attack whatever with no sense of guidance, and you could be doing it wrong, or you could just be doing nothing at all, it can slow everything down a little bit. I should just use Scathe. Why do I even bother? Okay, I actually got to cast a spell on that one, I think. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right, we're gonna do this. Okay, so now it's gonna explode for the last time. I'm gonna prep Astral Fire. I don't even think that worked. No, it didn't. And then I'm just gonna AoE down. Look at that. I didn't even get to I didn't even get to AoE. I didn't get to cast a single spell there, and I started casting Protect by accident. This is not a good video, but I'm gonna put it up because it's pretty. In my opinion, it's just funny. It's just funny to see that I'm trying to teach you guys something. How little use it really has talking about DPSing in low-level dungeons. Just don't get killed and then kill stuff. Follow your tank. Don't run away from the enemies if you do happen to pull aggro. And that's it. There's nothing else. I have nothing else to teach you. This is why I wanted to play a tank or healer in the first place, because there's unless I'm willing to just make a video for every single DPS class, this is all it is. It's nothing special at all, man. Follow the marks if they're there, and just don't die. There are going to be dungeons that have mechanics that you do want to follow. Like when we get to Ifrit, being a DPS on Ifrit and knowing which target to DPS is really important, because if you don't kill the target that's there, it will come back to bite you, and you will wipe. But at this level, it just doesn't matter, man. It just doesn't. In fact, I'm going to AoE again. Remember when I said 3 targets? 3 targets it is. Fire 2 it is. He's generating AoE enmity anyway. Costs a lot more MP, though, so you got to be a little bit careful about what you're doing. Also, I feel like spamming Blizzard 2 is not as good on 3 targets. Fire 2 on 3 targets is really effective, but Blizzard 2 on 3 targets, not so much. Also, one of them died when I started Blizzard 2ing anyway. So, I can't wait till I'm in the mid-30s with this class when I finally get Fire 3 and Blizzard 3 and Firestarter procs and Thundercloud procs and all the fun stuff about Black Mage. It's very simple and very, very plain at this level as a Thaumaturge. It really is for every DPS class, though. That's in all honesty, every DPS class is kind of like this at the low levels. You kind of just got to know the basics. It's really what makes the difference is when you're in those mid-30s to 40s. Because most of the time, that'll be when your class really begins to change. And I feel like Thaumaturge and Black Mage changes in probably the most confusing way by that level. You go from, using transpose to switch forms a lot to having to use your spells to switch. Okay, well, I'll be the one who kills it. We'll throw 1 Fire 2 out there just to... Okay, now it's gone. Never mind. Can't try. I can't teach you guys anything in this video. This video is... I'm going to stick this under the comedy section of YouTube, because it's definitely not under the educational section. That is for certain. I'm just going to Blizzard. I want to have full MP when we go into the next pull. I'm just going to Blizzard. He doesn't have that much health left. What dropped in that chest, by the way? Ethereal Cotton Tabard? That's a melee DPS. I don't think I'm going to play a melee DPS. Just so it doesn't go to waste. I mean, if the Dragoon wants it, which I sincerely doubt he does, because he's, you know, he's above level 30. What does he need the level 15 stuff for unless he's getting it to go back or he's getting it for glamour or something like that? And I don't think anybody gets ethereal gear for glamour, which is a system that we will, again, talk about in a later video. I'm all over the place. I shouldn't have had 3 cups of coffee before I recorded this. I should not have had that. Guys, if you're ever going to do YouTube, unless you're, like, spazzing out on purpose, like, don't drink 3 cups of coffee before you record a YouTube video. That's the most important lesson of this video. If you're trying to look for tips about YouTube, don't drink 3 cups of coffee unless you're going to be doing comedy anyway. Because I'm not even funny at this point. Alright. So this is the final boss of this dungeon. So when you're doing a single target boss, there's going to be a lot of different ways to do it. Like I said, you want to start with your buffs, and I totally didn't do that just because I'm totally not used to playing Thaumaturge, and like I said, I'm all over the place. So, but one big thing is you want to get your buffs up, and then you want to get your dots up. You always, in fact, I'm going to do that. If I was playing on a controller, this honestly wouldn't be as big of an issue. I'm really not good at playing on the controller. So you really want to get your buffs up before you get your dots up. Whatever buffs it is, whatever buffs your class has, you want to get them up. Because your dots are usually your hardest hitting abilities. They just take time to do all of their damage. So getting buffs up for them will make them even stronger overall. So I did, for example, Raging Strikes before I did my Thunder. Well, before I did my second Thunder, but you should have done it before the first one. And that was really the most important thing that I did. If you're an archer, you get straight shot up first. If you're a lancer, you get heavy thrust up first. If you're a pugilist, you try to get, you know, your twin snakes up, your greased lightning stacks up, and that's really all there is to it, man. Every class has some sort of buff that they want to prioritize before they start worrying about their dots. And other than that, you just beat the crap out of the enemy. We're ignoring mechanics right now, which also really doesn't help for the sake of the video. So thank you, Javot, for the quick Q, because that's all I'm really going to be able to teach. That's another big thing. The melee DPS right there, just use the limit break. I should have really talked about limit breaks at a much earlier point in the video, because DPS limit breaks, like I said in the tank one, are going to be probably the most important ones that you're going to use, whether it be as a caster to AoE down a bunch of enemies or as a melee DPS to kill a boss even faster. You really want to make sure you have the limit break on your bar, and unfortunately it's something that I failed to do because I just kind of knew I wasn't really going to be using it. I already have those, so I'm going to pass them. I just knew I wasn't going to be using my limit break in this dungeon, but you usually want to have the limit break in someplace on your bar, whether it be on, you know, the PC bar or on the cross hop bar with the controller. You want to have it there just in case, especially if you notice the other DPS who should be limit breaking isn't. Like, if I had seen that he wasn't using the single target limit break, it would have been beneficial for me to use it. Even though it's less single target damage, at least it's using the limit break, you know? So yeah, that video is kind of just a flub. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to put it up on YouTube because, honestly, you still got to see me DPSing in a dungeon. There really just isn't much to teach. When we get to the higher levels, it'll be more important. I'm going to thank this guy real quick. Yeah, thanks for the quick Q, man. Appreciate. Well, I should have said I appreciate it, but I'm not even typing correctly right now. So on that note, what have we learned about DPSing in dungeons? Expect really long queues. Do leaves. Do fates in between your queues because they're going to take a long time. Do your duty roulette if possible on your DPS. Work on your challenge logs. Work on everything while you're waiting. Anything at all. Even just go to YouTube and start watching other videos while you're waiting on a queue. Watch this video while you're waiting on the queue. I'm sure that'll be fun. And then when you get into the dungeon, stay alive. Make sure you don't get hit by AoEs if they come in your direction. And just kill everything. Buffs before dots, before single target rotation, and you should be good, man. So, thank you for watching the video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and check out all the other parts. This is part 10, I believe. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next part for hopefully something more informative than this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care.